right, folks, we're going to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is anyone here who would like to make public comments on items that are not on the agenda? Donna, if you want to come on up.
Donna Howard, I'm here on behalf of St. Albans Community Arts and the Festival of Trees. And we wanted to extend a belated thank you to the City of St. Albans for all your help and assistance with the Festival of Trees. With the city's help, we managed to not only help organize and run a week's worth of holiday events, but we raised $10,000 for Martha's Kitchen and $10,000 for Northwest Family Foods.
That's
Awesome. I'd like to give you this and say thank you very much.
That's terrific.
So Donna, if you want to come up, I'll present you with a thank you card for all of your work. I don't think people realize how much work goes into that.
So long.
You know, during the weeks before it, I know a number of ladies are downstairs in the basement here getting ready. And not to mention the decorating of the auditorium and all the events. So we would like to extend a sincere thank you to your team and for everything they do as well.
We're already starting our plans for this year, so if anyone wants to volunteer or save the date.
Yeah, I think as most people, at least the council know that those events are valuable to the community. We're trying to get to the point where we have something every month. And obviously December is a busy month with everything else, but we thank you for those efforts, and downtown would not be what it is without those events, so thank you very much. Any other comments? All right, we'll move to consider adoption of documents related to Congress in Maine. Dom, we'll turn over to you.
Sure. The action items are a series of resolutions related to transactional documents, the purchase and sale for market rate housing, the investment into 10 Main Lane, the $180,000, the authorization of borrowing from the Vermont Community Foundation, which then flows through to 10 Main Lane as a significant portion of that 880. And we signed the P&S for the affordable units in one of our last meetings, but a companion motion to that is a resolution authorizing the transfer of Unit 3. So that's what these four resolutions are. These are I believe to be the final transaction documents. It's a pretty significant milestone for this project. We've been on this for 3 years. It's kind of consumed all the oxygen in the room. It's a $20 million redevelopment. Generates $10 million in increase. And for comparison purposes, every $10 million is about the taxable value of a Walmart. So that's big. We're on track for 70 years at this point. In summary is the sources and uses table, which a summary is the sources and uses table, which shows you kind of on one page how all the money is flowing. Council adopted this plan over a year ago, and then we've been updating it as we go. So this is the latest update to that. I draw your attention to a couple of line items. The bottom of the sources table is the redevelopment fund contribution of $345,000. There was a time when that was over $600,000, and so that's kind of a plug number that shows you consistently close the gap by saving money on the construction project and raising additional funds. And then throughout the uses, there are several different contingencies still remaining in place. At the bottom of the construction cost center is an owner's contingency of $192,000. Another contingency at the bottom of the public safety building of $115,000, and then a soft cost contingency of $89,000. So you roll all those up, and it's possible that that $345 redevelopment fund contribution could shrink dramatically. We're at the point of the project where most of the unknowns are cleared. We're out of the ground. We've built the podium. We've sold one of the 3 lots. We've approved the purchase and sale for the second of the 3 lots. Tonight, we're approving the purchase and sale for the 3rd and final lot, and both of them are scheduled to close in early March. So,
Can you just touch on the CDBG increase? Where'd that come out of? Or how did that develop?
there's 2 increases, CDBG increase and a brownfields increase, both of 150,000 for a total of 300. This is on the sources side, so this is the revenue side. And when we got into the site, we realized that we needed a little bit more brownfield funding for the rear portion of the site where all the housing units were. And so we circled back to the 2 major funders of the housing program, CDBG, and then we also got some funds from VHFA, and then also got some additional brownfield funds as well. So that's what those 2 150s are there. Other questions?
Where does the CDBG funding show up other than that?
Well, that's the revenue, and the expense would show on the project site. It's embedded within the 3.2.
Oh. So you want us to approve each resolution one at a time?
I think that's
Would be the best way to do it?
Yeah, like for the easiest minutes.
So why don't we start with resolution number 1, which is the transfer of Unit 3 of Congress and Maine.
I would move to approve resolution number 1, which is the transfer of unit number 3 of Congress and Maine Master Condominium, the affordable housing units to the Snyder Construction Company LLC.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Jim, seconded by Marie. Are there any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Resolution number 2 authorizes the mayor to sign purchase and sale for Unit 4 of Congress and Maine Master Condominium.
That would be the market rate housing. I would make a motion to approve that resolution.
We have a motion from Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Marie. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution number 2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion passes. Resolution number 3 authorizes investment of $880,000 into 10 Maiden Lane LLC as outlined in operating agreement.
I would move to approve resolution number 3.
We have a motion from Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Marie. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Resolution number 4, authorizing borrowing of $500,000 from the Vermont Community Foundation for Congress and Maine project.
I would move to approve resolution number 4 as indicated.
Motion by Jim, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Marie. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Let the left side of the council table rest their voices. We'll take care of it.
Thanks, Jim.
We'll wait till we get to the
Yeah.
warrants. We're here.
So we're moving on to number 4, and that is authorization for the city manager to sign loan documents for Eric Stump and the Frozen Ogre. So the conversations Alan and I had with the owners of the Frozen Ogre relative to alone, pretty much based on a week or a holiday season, so it allows them to do some catch-up. I don't know if you want to share anything else on that.
Yeah, it's a combination, giving them some resiliency funding that was a tough spot, but also some strategic moves on their part to increase their inventory and try to have more items in stock in order to kind of compete better with the online commerce. So one of their strategic advantages is, you know, right now delivery beats next day delivery every time, particularly in the market for last minute gifts, which kids' toys are. That's a real sweet spot for them. So Tim and I met with them a week or two ago and talked about some of the short-term challenges and long-term opportunities, and came up with a plan for a $10,000 loan for 12 months at 2% interest. The documents reflect that they would pay the interest during that time and then balloon the principal to the end of the 12 months.
I'd just like to add, I think, and this is a bigger conversation than we'll do here today, but I think we need to re-engage ourselves on the downtown and start focusing on attraction of business, as well as stabilizing the businesses we have and working with them. I'm not sure what the solutions are, but you know, whether it's more advertising, more collaboration with the businesses, and being a little more focused on their well-being. So I think it's something that we can talk about moving forward, but I think it's something that definitely, we've invested all this money in the infrastructure and getting downtown looking what it is. We can't afford to end up with vacant storefronts across the front, so.
Where did we change our policy to do anything other than that? I mean, we initially had Marty doing that kind of stuff, and everything was full down here, and I now know he's got other duties, but have we, in the city staff, utilized any other person or transferred those duties to anyone where it's now not getting done?
I don't think we're doing less. I think what's required is more. So those duties have kind of been spread between Marty and Chip and I. And I think we're a couple of things there. You know, maybe we backed off a little bit, but I think some of that is probably been focusing on the economic restructuring piece of it, which is creating all the additional foot traffic with the projects across the street. And so as we focus on that, we can then turn back to some of this, sort of the day in and day out. I think what the merchants need is a number of things. I think we can take the principles and practices of development, the public-private partnerships model, and transfer that to the retail experience. Tilt the playing field dramatically towards our retailers, like we do towards our development projects. I think also we need to step up and run the advertising and marketing campaign that in the past has always been done. The merchants have taken the lead on that, and I think there were some decisions about what needed to be done and what didn't need to be this past year. But I think we need to at least commit to funding that, and we can involve the merchants as to how we promote it. There's an opportunity there. And the third, I think, is the events coordinator, which the mayor's talked about, and it seems to keep coming up, is the merchants get worn out from doing all of these special things to draw people to the downtown and take away some of our other businesses. So there's a lot there. Many of that is for things that can be funded with local option tax, to be honest.
The reason I ask is during this time, because I think that this example of the loan for the frozen ogre is a good example. And it's the type of thing that we should be doing, so that we beef up what's going on in the downtown. Well, I mean, this is the first time we've heard or seen of this. In the last couple of years, I gotta believe. I mean, who else? Oh, we extended the loan across from my office on 7th Street
Yeah.
for the ballet center.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, we've had some good businesses come in. The Maple Candy store.
And we did-
Someone's taken over Tetros now.
We did loans for the candy shop, we did loans, I believe, for Jeff Seafood, correct, Mark? For restaurant equipment. What this, though, is an example of, I think, is in order to maintain large inventory, you need to have access to large amounts of capital. And that can be a tough nut to crack for startup or younger businesses. And the lending requirements that the banks have are different than our lending requirements. And so that's a place where we can take what we learn on the development side and apply it to the retail side. You know, this isn't costing us anything, we're just essentially backing the loan. But people can come in, businesses can come in, they can do this every year, right? And pay it off in a year. And what a great way for us to support and be mutually invested in their viability.
So, conversation to continue.
Yeah.
I think it's, there's a lot of aspects of that we should be looking at. So we will, I'm not sure how we will move forward.
Is there any way that we can get the downtown board to come to the next council meeting, or a council meeting, so that we can discuss it with the downtown board?
Yeah.
Well, that, yeah.
After election?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
this summer, it doesn't have to be next week or next month, it's sometime this summer, so we can read, take the temperature of their pulse, and they can read what we can assist with.
good idea.
Who's the chair of that board?
Done? Are you done? Are you the chair of the downtown?
The merchants board?
Yeah,
The
No.
Downtown
Oh.
Merchants Committee is Maureen Brown.
okay.
No, two different things. The downtown board is who,
Oh, downtown board, yes.
is who's the chair?
That is currently Maureen.
Okay.
That's Maureen too.
Okay.
So the downtown board and merchants
Yeah.
sort of get confused sometimes.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, we'll move on to public hearings for town meeting. Don, we'll start off with the city
Did we
budget.
Did we
authorize,
actually, do we need to vote on that?
did we authorize that? Oh,
No, we didn't, I'm sorry, yeah.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to sign all documents for Fulton Road.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Jim. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion passes. Don, moving on to city budget.
Thank you. Give me a minute here. Get more of this. I had that for 7.
What's that?
You need to talk
We
for
moved
6
too
minutes.
fast. We gotta stop
Oh, you
till
got
seven.
time. I'm way ahead.
We were supposed to talk longer.
Okay. So, here's a copy of the FY21 budget, and there's additional copies up here, which we can pass out. Folks, they have an interest, we should have passed these out earlier. We can walk through this in as great or little detail as the council would like. But at the very highest level, this budget requires no increase in the property tax rate for the city. In my 12 years as city manager, I can't remember a time where we came in with a 0% tax increase. As we discussed, the pool, neighborhood sidewalk project, and the fund redevelopments, each of which we'll talk about in turn tonight, are funded through the local option tax or the TIF program, the Tax Increment Finance Program. They are not included within this budget. So the budget, therefore, is essentially an operating budget and represents the cost of services. One of the ways that we've managed to achieve a 0% budget proposal certainly is the suggested use of the local option tax. But we've also pursued driving down the cost of services through regional contracts, chiefly in public safety and in recreation. This budget proposes a modest increase in the Highgate police contract. Moves from 24 to 30 hours a week. And we've also converted our dispatch fees to a per capita cost of $12 per person in FY21, which has allowed us to recover a portion of the cost of the new facility in the police station, which will be moving into the current CCD building in the fall, and some additional capital investments that we've made in the dispatch network through additional communications towers. The Recreation Department also continues to experience strong growth, both in the city and the town and in outlying communities. And that growth is reflected in the recreation revenue and expense side. So this budget, for the average homeowner in the city with a mean value, appraised value of $200,000, total city taxes, municipal taxes would be $1,863.20. Which is exactly the same that they were in FY20. I can provide additional detail about specific departments or answer questions about specific programs or services. That's the highlight of what's going on with the city budget. No tax increase, all the same existing programs and services with some expansion into regional opportunities. Council would highlight specifically.
I would just caution taxpayers that when if all the budgets pass, that when they get their tax bill, it is going to be higher than it was because the school tax is proposed to go up 4%. So just want to clarify that for the city's portion, it is level funded or level tax. So I don't want people to say, well, we heard that it was going to be no increase, but the increase does come. If passed, the school budget is going up 4%.
An easy way to take a look at that is when you look at your tax bill, there's two portions of it. There's a school tax and there's a local tax, municipal tax. It's in two different sections of the tax bill. And you can see which the charges are for each one on the tax bill, and then they're totaled down in the corner right above any state payment that you would get. All right, so that's how you take a look at what's the municipal portion and what's the state portion. As far as the budget is concerned, this is not the first time we've looked at it. We've seen it through the Finance Committee and already on the council once. But the reoccurring themes to us, the Finance Committee and the council, are we want police, we want fire, we want good roads, we want things for our kids to do and things for the community to do. And in order to do that, we rely heavily on the local option tax that we're proposing for the city of St. Albans this year. And we fashioned the budget in that way. So usually where the onus would fall on the property tax owner, it's not going to fall on the property tax owner this year. But in order to make this work, we need that local option tax. And it's important for people to show up and support that. And that's what this budget's crafted about, as far as the Finance Committee is concerned. And on the proposal to the council, it was approved.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the budget? Donna?
One question I had about the local option tax, there have been conflicting comments, rumors, whatever you want to call it, on the street about whether these cities have assessment of the income to be gained from the local option tax included the state's cut of the local income tax, or whether that had been removed and that was our actual portion that we were going to receive.
Question?
The state does get a portion of it, I think.
Correct, that's a net figure.
So the state takes 30%.
Yeah. It's just not, it hadn't been clear to a lot of people whether that number floating was
For
before or
what
after.
the state takes it and then they redistribute it out to other communities via the payment of the taxes or payment for tax exempt properties. So, and we get a piece of that too. They're not taking all of that just for their overhead. It's distributed to communities that don't have the same level of commerce as Shire towns.
Michael, you had a question?
Yes, in regards to the pool, is that going to be funded through this option tax?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the taxpayers will not have to pay for the, towards the pool,
Property owners.
property owners, correct? So it could be like the town.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't get out very often, so I made it out, I took the handcuffs off me tonight so I can come down.
We have our own little meeting on Smith Street because every time I walk the dog around the loop, Mr. Bushy and I have a little powwow about what's going on here, so.
For him
Yeah,
to,
the,
So, it's
for
great.
him to say he doesn't get out very much, I would disagree with that.
I get in trouble when I do.
What was that, Del?
I'm just saying, we're gonna have to submit these minutes to the legislature, so if we can, let's try to maybe close the budget portion, and then we'll move on to,
Yes.
I know a lot of folks want to talk about the LOT and the pool.
Okay, any other comments on city budget? Anyone? Okay, we'll move on to item B, neighborhood sidewalk fund.
So on the warning and on the ballot, we've talked about Article 2, which is the city budget. Article 3 is the completion of the neighborhood sidewalk project. It reads, shall the city of St. Albans issue general obligation bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000 for the purpose of financing the construction of neighborhood sidewalks and curbs and associated site work, utility improvements, and professional services, and for the payment thereof, place the credit to the city, in particular the revenues generated from the local option tax, the estimated cost of such improvements being $1,500,000. This is the last phase of the neighborhood sidewalk project. We previously published a list of streets that need to be finished, but it's sprinkled throughout the city. It's kind of the loose end project, and as we got into it, we realized there was a level of service that we needed to provide to meet the expectations of the neighborhoods as pertained to where curbs went and how driveways were finished and how sidewalk entryways into the connection of houses were finished and how trees were left. And not all of that was included in the original estimate. And so as a result, the approximately $5 million project, we've got another $1.5 million that we intend to finish up, and it'll be paid for out of the local option tax.
And just for my Federal Street people that keep asking me, I'm assuming that that's still on target to do the street, the curbs and the sidewalks in FY 2022, is that when it's gonna be done?
Federal Street's not part of the neighborhood sidewalk.
I know, but I have people that want their sidewalks fixed, and they keep questioning me.
Yeah, we're not the holdup there. The
Mhm.
projects have been quote unquote federalized.
Right.
I think FY '22 is a reasonable estimate. But we're not entirely in charge of it in the way that we are in the neighborhood sidewalk.
That's what I told them, but I wasn't sure if, when we were talking approximately when that was gonna be done. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the good news there is, we're raising a lot of additional money to pay for it. But with that money comes strings.
Right, thank you.
And we can remind everybody, prior to the bond work for the sidewalks, the budget was putting, we were earmarking at least $30,000 to $60,000,
But
up to $80,000 a year for sidewalks, which we're not doing now. Why? We have the bond, and the first bond, and two, we have the bond for these sidewalks, which is gonna be paid by the LOT. So that money is not in the budget, which would be a burden on the property tax owners. Not there.
I would also reinforce that if the local option tax does not pass, then the sidewalks are not a possibility at this stage, as is the pool. So both would go away without the local option tax approval, so. Does anyone have any? Right.
Yeah, is this the fourth or fifth season of construction on the sidewalks that we really need to?
yes,
It's the fifth, but the first year was the Main Street project as part of the
okay,
Okay.
yeah.
separate.
Some of the issues you had around the driveway aprons and front walks and things like that, is that also why, not just the funding increase, but the delay in completion? Does a lot of it come from that?
No, it was all, I mean, there's only so much sidewalk work that a construction company can do in a 5-month construction season. So it's more that. It was always intended to be at least a 3-year project, which also gave us time to phase in the tax impact over multiple years, so it wasn't this disruptive. So it was always intended to be a multi-year project. You know, 3 was the benchmark, and this will be 4th.
Okay. And it'll be like, pretty sure it'll wrap up this time?
Based on the information that we have, we're pretty sure. Yeah.
Awesome. An unrelated, separate question is Ferris Street. It's been a long complaint about street with issues with telephone poles and a really narrow green belt or no green belt and a line of sight issue. So I was wondering if that had been redesigned from the original plans that we got 5.5 years ago. If there was something a little bit more complete to talk to those neighbors about, or that we could look up somewhere.
Let me do this. I can give you a partial answer, and then encourage you to connect with Marty, and he can show you the plans and get a neighborhood meeting together if need be, provided there's no increase in scope.
Yeah.
The description that's in the project is to eliminate the north sidewalk, reconstruct the south walking curbs, and widen the street.
Awesome.
So
Thanks.
it's just under 200,000.
Cool.
Any other questions on sidewalks? Okay, we'll move on to item number C, which is the community pool. Thinking the majority of the folks here may be here to learn more about that or have questions. So Don, we'll turn it over to you, and if you want to
Sure.
touch base on.
So Article 4 is the community pool. There's been a lot of ink spilled on this in recent years, recent months. But just to recap and set the stage a little bit for the conversation. Our current pool down on Albans Street is in dire straits. It almost didn't open for the last 2 years running. Our rec director's here, and she can tell you the various stories about the duct tape and bubble gum. But we've had a problem for a couple of years. And we searched around the community for the right solution. And we had a lot of input from the general public and the users of the pool, both in the city and the town. And we heard things like, if we're going to spend millions of dollars, we need to get a lot of useful life out of this. Rebuilding the current pool would cost $2 million, but we would have only got 15 years out of it. And if we're going to spend that kind of money, we really ought to be able to swim year-round. And we looked at an option, but we also want to swim outside in the summer, which meant 2 pools. And that was north of 10 million, 12 million as I recall. And as we continued to look at the existing site on Albans Street, it became increasingly apparent that that site just wasn't the right location for the pool for the next 40 years. We don't own the land. Parking, if you do anything year-round, is really difficult because the school provides most of the parking in the off-season because their students aren't there. And it's a tiny site, and so the expectation and the standards for pools built in 2020 really reflect a multi-generational focus. And a lot of that, in addition to your standard, 6-lane competition pool, it also requires a zero entry, like a beach where you can walk into it area. And if you're going to have, if you really want to have a multi-generational pool, you want to be able to spread out your folks with very young kids that are learning to swim from your school-age kids who need something like a slide or a diving board, from your folks at the other end of the spectrum, your seniors who are looking for a totally different pool experience. And all that takes space. So we began to look at other sites that we owned, and pretty quickly the Hardack Recreational Facility rose to the top of the heap. Hardack, as you know, is at the top of Congress Street. It's 90 acres in the city. During this process, deeded that land. I'll actually start with this one. And so what happened here was the coalescence of a site planning exercise, finding the right site with a financial planning exercise and a political exercise with St. Albans Town to create a vision for this site. So the vision that emerged at Hardak was to extend the sidewalk on the top of Congress Street, build a new access drive into the site, move it away from the intersection where there had long been concerns about traffic problems, run a recreation path along the side here, do the whole thing with crushed gravel to maintain the character of the area, take advantage of the synergy offered by the Greg Brown Lodge. This is the Greg Brown Lodge right up here. Create as much additional parking as you possibly can. So this is an expanded and redesigned parking area. This is all overflow parking. This is senior parking. It's not handicap, but it's all at grade and will allow folks to provide at grade access to the pool house here. And to construct a pool house, excuse me, a pool, it worked for today's St. Albans and tomorrow's St. Albans. So this is the at-grade entry that we've talked about. You walk into this like a beach. If you're in a wheelchair, you roll into it. If you need a little bit of help, there's a railing here. And you know, it literally is like a beach. It graduates out. We then also have a slide feature, which is over here. I'll show you that in a minute. The slide isn't able to fit in the dome in the wintertime. But the slide comes in here for your older school-age students. We maintain the diving well, and we also have maintained the competition pool. On any given day, the numbers at the existing, we call it the city pool, but it's really the city-town pool because it's 50-50. Kelly, how many people are there in an average day in the sun?
On a regular day, we have about 600 visitors, and on a day that we are hosting a swim meet, it could be anywhere between 1,200 and 2,000 people. And that's every day, all 9 or 10 weeks, depending on how long we can run.
So those are big numbers, right? That requires a pool that works. Our current pool doesn't work anymore. This is the slide I was mentioning. And along the way, we realized this was going to, we were approaching the upper $4 to low $5 million range. And it doesn't make any sense to put that kind of money into a pool, into an aquatic facility for 7-8 weeks out of the year. But it makes a lot of sense, we think, if you can do it 12 months. So this is an air-supported structure. It's built by the Farley Group out of Canada and Toronto. Farley's the top brand in air-supported structures. This will be come on probably sometime in late September and come off sometime in late May. It gives us a year-round pool. The cost of the dome is about $400,000. The cost of a building to go over it was about $4 million. So it literally starts lopping zeros off of it. One of the added benefits of having a year-round pool up here is in May, when you begin to think about swimming, but it's still too cold, this pool will be heated. And in September, where you'd like to still swim if you can, this pool will still be heated. So I think there's 2 months of really attractive shoulder season there as well. The total cost for the pool is $5.5 million. It's split evenly between St. Albans City and St. Albans Town. Under that agreement with the city and the town, the town, if their voters approve it, would be a partner not just in the pool, but in the whole of the Hardack site. The Hardack site is managed collaboratively right now by the Hardack Board of Trustees and the City Recreation Committee. As part of this, the city and the town will balance out their seats on the rec committee. In both communities, it's supported by the local option tax. The town has already passed theirs, but in our case, we need to approve that, which is the charter amendment, which is the next agenda item that's coming up. But in summary, I harken back to what Tim was saying a few minutes ago. This is a classic community amenity. This is one of the, when people say, well, I've got a great job, I've got a great house, but what are my kids going to do? Give me a reason to live there. This checks that box emphatically. We're the envy of communities across the state right now with this proposed pool on the ballot. I can't tell you how many emails and texts are coming in from folks saying, boy, I sure wish my community would consider something like this. So it helps continue to make St. Albans a community of distinction, literally puts us on the map. Kelly, anything you would add to that?
You really covered it. It's a couple of things I've heard is, gee, why do we need another pool? And that's not the case. Our pool is in, as Dominic said, dire straits. We're hoping we have one more year out of it to move into a new pool. And just to answer that question.
We would demo the existing pool under this proposal. So, Councilor, is there anything you would add?
I've had some of my folks question a couple of things. Well, actually, there's a young lady in the audience here right now that asked if we were going to have bicycle racks for bicycles, because a lot of people will probably walk or bike up there. So, and I assume they will be, but I don't know.
Yeah, the biking transit plan is a big part of the plan here. I want to answer that and make another point as well. This proposal includes what we're calling the aqua van. So during the summer months, we recognize that this pool is at the top of the hill and the current pool is at a flat location. So the city's committed to circulate at no cost a van that will transport kids up to Hardack with bike racks on it so that they can ride down if they'd like, and there'll certainly be bike racks up there and ample bike storage for folks to continue to bike to the pool.
What's the yearly cost to run a pool like this? And how will it be divided between the city and the town?
The operational costs will be covered by the users. So, much like the parking garage, the operational costs in the parking garage are serviced by the people that park there. The operational costs here will be serviced by the people that use the pool. It's not part of the bond. It's intended to be covered by those that use it. The city will continue to control that and set the rates accordingly.
So you expect enough people to pay for the lights and insurance and tax and everything else that's included, right?
We do. One of the problems we have currently with our existing pool is there isn't any ability to get any economies of scale with the months that you're operating, because it's only seven or 8 weeks. We believe that by extending that over to 12 months out of the year and having enhanced offerings, that we can increase the revenues to cover the operating expenses. There's two competing interests there. The first is, one reflected in your question, is who pays for the operations. And I've answered that. The other competing interest is we don't want it to cost too much to swim there. So our intent is to thread the needle between those two opposing forces. We're not a for-profit For us, our mission is not to make money, it's to provide a community amenity. And so we intend to set the fees accordingly. Right now, right now it costs $5 to go to the pool for the day. Right now, our intent is to try to keep those in play, certainly for the summer. We don't yet have enough information about what the heating costs are going to be for the winter and how that will affect rates, but our intent is to try to keep it in line with what it's been in the past, which is $5 a day.
Yes,
Just real quick, we'll also, Kelly,
I'm just really concerned because of the Collie Purlins, the way it was presented to the people. It has not ended up that way. And I'm worried that maybe the pool is presented this way, but it won't end up this way.
Commons Pro before me, I think there's different dynamics at play because the capital is all taken care of through the bonds here, and Commons Purley has somewhat the competing interest on there and of serving the school and then also serving the community. This is a community facility, plain and simple, and so we have the ability to raise our costs if need be to cover the operating costs. We have the ability, if the council wants to subsidize that, to keep the costs low. So we feel like we've got a number of adjustment valves on either side of that needle that we're trying to thread, that we can make our way through it. Kelly, why don't you talk a little bit about the different membership levels that we've envisioned with monthly memberships and that type of thing?
Sure, so we're looking at monthly memberships for a family being $50, for individuals being $30, and for seniors being $25 per month. And that is at any time. I mean, you could swim every single day, you can go back 3 times a day, it doesn't matter. As Dominic mentioned, we're trying to keep our gate fee at the same price that we're charging now, which is $5 a day. One thing that we run into at the current pool is that it's a big pool, but you cannot separate out much. That when a swim meet is going on, nothing else can happen. When swim lessons are going on, nothing else can happen. This pool separates out some of the action. So if we have a fitness class going on in the shallower water, that can happen while people are doing lap swim in the competition pool, and you can still have people using the slide. Another thing we run into with our current pool is that it is, it's an older pool, and the shallow end is actually 3 feet deep, and it goes to 3.5 feet, which doesn't sound like a lot unless you're 2 feet tall, and then it's not much fun. And if you're a mom with a child, a small child, you're standing there with a kid or 2 kids on your hip, and there's just, you can't put them down. It's just not that, it's not that much fun happening there. On top of that, you have very excited 8, 10, 11, 12-year-old boys, cannonballing all over the place. So everybody's trying to have a good time, but there isn't the space to separate out everybody so they can have a good time. And this allows families and small children and people with limited access or mobility to access the pool in the zero entry. It has loads of fun in that slide for everybody who wants to use that, or the diving board. And then it has, a separate area for lap swim or fitness classes. So I think that, a lot of different kinds of uses can happen at the same time.
Don?
Well, while you're on the membership issue, is it going to be some sort of day rate for maybe some of our tourists coming using the hotel who might want to come with their families and enjoy the pool for the day? We're looking for something to do.
Yeah, anybody can come. There will be a resident and non-resident rate.
But they can just sign for the day, they don't have to buy a month.
Oh, no. So I mean, so we'll offer memberships, which would give you a discount if you're a regular user, or if it's someone who's just in town, or you have friends or relatives, or, I can't imagine if I live nearby, maybe not in this town, I would come here because it looks like a blast, So, anyone is welcome on any basis.
I'm 100% in favor of a pool if you've got a lake near you. So the more people that get instruction are a lot safer. So initially, I don't have any objection. From experience, I taught physical education, and I taught in a school that had pools, and it was expensive. You've got to have people that are highly trained, people that know how to take care of it. And secondly, in the community I lived in, they built a hockey rink, pool, fitness combination. After several years, they couldn't maintain the pool because it became too expensive. Now, whether it was because people got all excited and started coming there and then just stopped coming, I don't know, but they finally had to give the pool to the YMCA. I think what I'd really be careful about is if you could just see an operation like this somewhere, walk in, talk with them if they've been running it for 3 or 4 years, so that you have an idea what's going to cost you.
We've done some of that. We intend to do more of that in the coming months. The biggest cost that we anticipate is the natural gas bill for heating the dome. As you mentioned, there's stories all across the country of slamming successes and those stories of failures. And our analysis is a lot of it has to do with the management that's in place, A, and B, the competition from other pools surrounding it. There isn't another facility like this in the county, and I would argue even in Chittenden County, there isn't one that offers this type of experience. And so we think the market is broad, and that'll work in our favor. In terms of the staff training piece of it, I'd Kelly to speak to that. She's closer to it and can talk about how we handle that.
First of all, I would just like to say nothing makes me happier when someone acknowledges how important it is for kids to learn how to swim when they live near a lake. Sometimes you hear people say, well, you need a pool for, you've got a lake. It's like you have to know how to swim, and that's like, it's a public health issue with children. They have to know how to swim. And so, I mean, I've been, I don't know if I should admit it, I've been working in aquatics for
20 years.
48 years. And it's my, it's near and dear to my heart. We have a very highly respected training program. I worked with Dee Christie, and Dee has been training people for, has been in aquatics almost as long as I have. And we train lifeguards, we train swim instructors, we train instructors to train lifeguards, and we train instructors to train swim instructors. And that isn't, I mean, and that is based on decades of experience and certifications. And also our pool manager and myself are certified pool operators. So I mean, there's just a certification, there's no certification I don't like. If there's anything our staff can learn, if there's anything we can learn, we're always, all our staff is certified to the highest level. And that is in first aid, CPR, and AEDs as well. So I totally agree with that. We actually train so many people, we can't hire everybody we train, so we take the absolute best of the crop, and then others go off and work in other aquatic areas, throughout the state. And I often get an email that will say, man, we love it when we get one of your lifeguards, they know what they're doing, there isn't a whole lot of downtime, they can hit the ground running. So I don't believe training or staffing will be an issue. As far as the chemical use, we have the same staff. We're lucky to have a lot of teachers who are our summer staff who have, again, one has been with us for 25 years. The others have been with us for 10 and 12 years. They are, they're top notch. And the way that they have been able to baby our current pool and kind of pull it along is why it's still, we got this far with it.
One other thing I wanted to mention, is it necessary to have a diving board? Is that, you need it for competition or what?
No, it's not necessary. It's highly sought after and advocated for, but it's not necessary.
Because that was a pain in the rear to have a diving board.
Yeah. Did you have a high dive as well, or just a low dive?
You know, that was 120 years ago. I guess.
Help
Problem with it is people don't know how to dive,
Yeah.
and they want to pound on that thing if they can, and it's a danger
Yeah.
when you're working with swimmers.
You know, part of the reason, I mean, it's fun, and that's a lot of the attraction is that kids especially love to use a diving board. But part of the reason that I am an advocate of having a diving board is to teach diving and so that kids know how to dive. There aren't that many opportunities. So many municipal pools and so many home pools have had their diving boards removed that kids don't learn how to dive. And you know, you spend much time at the city pool and you're gonna hear, don't run, walk please. You know, one bounce on the board. We have an awesome staff and we really push safety as it's a primary.
Mike?
Yes, a couple of questions. As far as heating it, they mentioned that it's gonna be heated by propane gas.
Natural gas.
Oh, it is natural gas, okay, I just wanted to make sure, so, because I know they said on TV the other night it's gonna be propane. Propane is a lot more expensive than natural.
Yeah.
So that's good, so it's natural gas for that. And again, you mentioned that the pool is gonna be heated. Also, is it gonna be set up so they can ice skate on that in the wintertime?
Not in the pool, but we'll be swimming in the pool.
No, I understand, but I didn't know sometimes we could
Yeah.
change it over or not.
Yeah. You know, there's an existing rink that's been already permitted up there, and that design survives the permitting process. So that's what this is right here. It used to be here, we just moved it over. But that's not part of this project. That reflects the aspirations of an younger group that might come back to fruition someday, but it's not part of this plan.
The other thing, hopefully it all goes through, but we'll say if it does not go through, it does not go through. We always got the pool that's down there now, and they had an article in the paper where there's more people from the town using the city pool than here. If that does not go through, could the town and the city get together again to put money back in this pool here to get it up and running?
Depends on how the elections go in town.
Well, I understand, As I say, if it does not go through,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can do whatever the voters allow us to do.
I understand.
So, question back here and then up here.
I'm going to shift paragraphs a bit.
Okay.
I come around that corner of where the dog park is, and I come down Congress Street probably twice a day.
Yeah.
I find that a very unsafe corner. And now we have the dog park, and this is going to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can show us exactly where this road is going to, this entrance to the whole complex is going to go. We saw that before, but I had a hard time understanding.
Yeah, that's really quick. So this is the Fisher Pond Road here.
Yes.
This is Eastview here.
Yep.
So about halfway between the Fisher Pond Road and Eastview is where the new road is envisioned.
You want to point out the dog park?
The dog park is right here.
Just below the dog.
That's all.
So it's below the dog park.
Yeah. So, but it's, you know, if just past the dog park is where the new road goes. You're concerned that it's too close to the dog park?
That's my own concern. The other thing at one time, street talk was that there was going to be a light at that section. And
This section?
yes. And my feeling is
There is one.
sorry, stop light.
Traffic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I go by there twice a day. I don't stop.
On the road, is that what you mean, or walking?
Say that again.
You said you come around it twice a day. You come around like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know the area really well and what we are confronted with. What I had heard one time that there was going to be a stoplight there.
Not part of this project. It's in the town of St. Albans, so we couldn't control it. I neglected to mention that this existing road here, this entrance will be closed. This becomes an emergency access only. And so to get to the dog park folks would have to come in through here and go around like this, or they could park here and go in through a gate over here. But I think a lot of what you're experiencing is the conflict between this and this. Is that right? Yeah, so that goes away with this project.
Okay. Just,
Yeah.
it's a concern.
Yeah, no, I agree.
A lot of activity
Yeah, no,
there
so
now, so.
out of the $5.5 million, it's about split half and half for site work and pool-related improvements. So the site work, to deal with that issue that you're talking about, is a big investment that we're making up here. And one of the things that we're supporting with this is the positioning of the Hardak facility for additional growth as a recreational asset. And we tried to develop this project in concert with the master plan that exists for the site. That's why you see some of these other, this comes out here, there's some additional parking out here and all the rest.
One other thing that people who live up in that area ought to maybe consider is the value of their house may be increased.
I think so too.
With all that.
It's a good time to buy out there. Yeah, you've been very patient, yeah.
I was just wondering, because I know one of the goals of St. Albans is to shop local and shop small. So there's 2 family-run pool businesses in this town.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, are they going to be part of this project at all, or the ongoing maintenance, or are you planning on utilizing them at all, since they are small family-run businesses?
We'll certainly have a conversation with the Brandons to see if it's a good fit.
Great, that's why we're here.
I could piggyback here. You mentioned natural gas to heat the bubble, but I'm doing ballpark numbers on what it would cost to heat the bubble, and what I'm guessing is between 200 and 300,000 gallons of water, what that would cost on an annual basis.
Yeah, $160,000 a year.
In natural gas.
In natural gas, yeah. A bubble makes a lot of sense if you want to be able to have an indoor pool and an outdoor pool. If you just want an indoor pool, you should just build a metal structure. But in Vermont, in the summer, people want to swim outside. So that's how we went from a $12 million project to one that's a little under 6, is building one pool with the ability to have a dome that comes off and on. It's the same solution that Smuggler's Notch utilizes up there at their pool, on same bubble.
Somebody told me that when that bubble's on there, that the temperature inside is maybe about 55 degrees. It's not very warm. Do we have any estimates of how warm it'll be inside that pool area? Maybe Kelly can answer that, but you
I'm
don't
going to be there tomorrow night. I'll take the temperature.
And from someone who was swimming there last month, it's nice. It's not 50. But you have to balance the heat in the air and the heat in the water so that there's not condensation. So the air in there will be 83 degrees.
Okay.
Pool will be high 70s, air will be low 80s. Done.
The operating costs will be covered by the pool users. Does that include the increased staffing?
Yes, yeah. That includes running the pool.
Have you guys modeled a budget the same way you do your normal annual budget for the pool? Have you done that for what this is really going to look like in 2021?
We've done an abbreviated version of that with the information that we have. Some of that depends on the programs that are running. We've done enough of it to get comfortable with the big utility costs. The rest of it then, I think, begins to look very much like our existing recreational programs, which by and large pay for themselves. Some make a little, some lose a little. But the people that are taking a particular class pay for the instructor that's delivering that class. So we've focused on the big fixed costs, and we're comfortable with that. And then the rest of it, I think, is manageable.
Is that available for review, what
Sure.
you've done so far?
Yeah, I don't have it tonight, but I can get to it. Question here?
So I have kind of a multi-part question, so I'm going to break it up. I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page with you guys. So the pool itself, it's a bond that is being voted on that would be paid for by the local option tax. If that's approved, obviously both have to be approved, correct?
Correct.
If a year or two down the road, 5 years down the road, whatever period it may or may not be, if the local option tax ceases to be, whether that be the legislature decides, you know, Vermont doesn't want that local option tax anymore, or maybe local taxpayers decide we want to get rid of that tax because we don't think it's working in our community, they're still on the hook for the bond, for the pool. What would the annual payment be for the pool bond?
The annual payment for the pool bond is, depending on whether it's 20 or 25-year bonds, it's about $180.
For the city.
For the city, yeah.
And that would have to go back to the local taxpayers.
It would, but there's a huge asterisk there. It's not just about the city voters approving it. The state legislature has to approve our charter. And a city charter then has the force and effect of it becomes state law.
Okay.
And there's 20 odd other communities that have the local option tax in place and embedded within their charter. So for the state legislature to overturn that, that'd be a heavy lift in order to getting all of their legislators to, they'd endure an awful lot of fire. And the communities that have it is where all the population of the state is. It remains, it's a general obligation bond. That's where you get your best rates. It's not a revenue bond. So it would go back, but the odds of that, they're hard to calculate.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, you know, it's my job to kind of present some of these things that could happen.
Yeah.
And that, at least.
It's a good question. It's very similar to the tax income and financing bonds that the city's passed. And in many ways, and the economists that we've been working with echoes this theme. Both of those programs have the philosophical underpinnings of build it and then they will come, right? And that's a big part of why we're doing this, is to continue to make St. Albans a community of distinction and to pay for it by the people who come to experience that distinction. And I think, I looked at the track record that the city has over the last 7 years with our TIF bonds. We haven't raised base property taxes to pay for any of those. They've all been paid for by increment. And we intend to do the same here, have it be paid for by the local option tax.
And the last question I had to go with that local option tax is, have you guys done any calculations, if it's even possible, to try to calculate out what the average St. Albans City resident would pay in local option tax? Is there any estimate as to how much a local resident, spends in their own community at a restaurant or shop or whatever, that they are going to end up paying this extra 1%?
Yeah.
Obviously, part of it's going to be non-residents.
Sure. That number is almost impossible to get because everybody's spending habits are different. The best way to answer it, I think, is anecdotally. And so, a $100 meal at a restaurant is now $101. Those that eat out a lot are going to spend a lot more. Those that eat out less are going to spend a lot less. A $10, something that costs $10 is 10 over, right? So, and it scales up like that. The other thing that's interesting to point out is all the things that are exempt from the local option tax. Doesn't cover food in a grocery store, doesn't cover, isn't applied to residential domestic heating oil, isn't applied to pharmaceuticals, isn't applied to cars. So if you were bound and determined to avoid this tax, you probably could. But you'd also have to avoid buying anything from Amazon and buying anything in South Burlington and the town of St. Albans. And when you look at the list of everybody that's enjoying this revenue stream, what pops is that we got to get in on the party because we're being left behind. And it's one of the fastest growing revenue streams. And growing that revenue stream reduces the reliance on the property tax, just like we have in the proposed budget. Michael?
You just mentioned exempt. That option tax, is that going to apply for our gas bill and our light bill, 1%?
Doesn't apply to residential utilities.
What's that, I'm sorry?
It does not apply to residential utilities.
Only
So the gas bill, the light bill will not be affected with that charge?
That's on your rental, it would. On commercial rental property, it's different there, but
On
heating
rental
now,
property,
yeah.
as a household?
Yeah.
Correct.
The only exception to that, like, is your cable bill. So your cable bill would have the 1%, your natural gas or your electricity would not.
Good, thank you. See, I'm getting a lot of answers I'm working here.
I just want to go back to Greg for a minute. You talked about what if the economy takes a nosedive. Part of the allocation that we have committed to as a council and the city is, I think we're either at 5 or 7.5% reserve. So every year, we're setting aside a reserve to make sure that if there is a slight decline, we're in a position where we can pay for that bond payment. So that will be an ongoing commitment year after year.
That's a good segue. Let's start with that. Maybe one more from Donna?
Just while we're on disaster questions and planning and that, should something major happen to the pool, and I know it's insured, but things happen and there are things insurance doesn't cover, et cetera, who's on the stick for major repairs that aren't really covered by regular annual maintenance costs?
The owners.
So would the city and the town share the cost of doing that, or would it all be the city's responsibility as the operator of the pool?
We're the owners of if the facility is destroyed, then it would be the owner's responsibility to replace it. Yeah, that's a good
Which
question.
is city or town or both?
Both.
Okay.
Does, I have a sort of string of questions. Does winter coverage and constant usage prolong the life of this pool as compared to having an outdoor pool? Or a pool that lies empty in the winter, unprotected?
I can tell you, our current pool, it gets its damage in the winter. Like, we go down, especially in this last few years, when we go down there and wait for the snow to melt, it's always like, man, what happened this year? So I mean, my experience with that pool is that winters are rough on it.
So is that part of the sense of where savings come from, is there isn't any shoulder time to like bring the pool back into existence and closing it down for the season and that kind of maintenance, even though the usage is going to be higher?
It's more like economies of scale. You spread it out over 12 months. You've got all of that activity is spread out, and all your revenue opportunities are spread out as well, which allows you to have a much bigger operation, which allows you to do much better capital planning for addressing your maintenance issues as they go along. When you're operating a 7 or 8 week program, it's triage down there from May and through the end of September, and everything is done looking through a seasonal context. This spreads it out and allows us to be planned and budgeted for and managed.
That brings me to my next question, which is the demands for Kelly's time. With how much you put into the pool things in the summer, is this going to shift how you're structuring staff or changing things in the job description of Kelly and some of her employees that have a lot of experience with the city recreation department?
We think most of this can fit under other duties as assigned for Kelly.
I agree with that. Yeah.
We could hire a pool manager.
The life expectancy of the pool, you said, is 40 years?
Yeah, that's the aspiration that they're shooting for the pool itself. We got 40 years out of our last one. The useful life of the dome is 15. So our intent is to try to handle that out within the CIP.
Okay, good, glad to hear that. The sense of the van, the operating costs of the van, and the likelihood of people using the van to get up there. Obviously, you talked about the elevation change, it's like 250 feet or something.
Yeah.
The pool's historically been well situated for young kids in the city who aren't very high in income and often don't get supervised in the summer, they can go to the pool, be somewhere that's mostly supervised, it's pretty safe, it's loosely structured, you know, so that's really nice for them. The sense of having this van, are we really convinced that a lot of children will use that to get up there? Is there something around making that be a really relaxed thing for them to use? Like, I'm just wondering if like a lot of thought has been put into the psyche of children using something versus the way we think as ourselves as adults and how we use things and the differences there.
So if, one of the questions that's come in a lot is would we, instead of running it ourselves, would we partner with a transit provider? And we wouldn't preclude it, but right now our inclination is to operate it ourselves so that we can control the experience. You know, riding the bus has never been cool, right? We think if we control it ourselves, we can make it cool, and that's part of the vision for trying to come up with a name like the Aqua Van or something else that resonates more. Put the bike racks on it, and we see it as an opportunity to connect more with disadvantaged youth, frankly. You know, whether they'll use it or not, I think we're all humble enough to admit that we might have it wrong, and if they don't use it, then we'll adjust. But that's been part of the proposal from day one, is separating site selection from access. And this was heads and tails above every other site, and then that meant that we had to invest a little bit more in the access issue.
Which is the next question of what other places were considered, properties, parcels?
Fonda, Public Works, the existing site. I believe that's it, right?
I think so.
How's that?
Yeah. None of them could be touched for cost effectiveness. Fonda, you don't want to dig out a whole bunch of soil, right?
Right.
Public Works couldn't do it without impacting the parking, de facto parking easement for the Little League field across the street. And then you got to build a new Public Works facility. So there's another $5 million. And the existing site we talked about, it was just too small.
So, with regards to the parking situation there, for example, is the expected daytime usage of this pool during the colder months, or going on the school year, expected to be so high that the parking was incompatible?
Parking was one component, it wasn't the driver. The driver was the site of the pool, size of the property itself. We could have rebuilt what's there for a couple million for 15 years. But all the input we were hearing was that that wasn't the smartest money, the cheapest money, but it wasn't the smartest money. To do that, you'd be lopping off this whole feature right here, the zero entry pit, and you might fill the diving well. But one of the main drivers was that zero entry feature, because it really speaks to both ends of the aging spectrum, and it was really tough to try to get an inflatable structure down there retrofitting the existing pool. It's just, you're swimming upstream.
Thank you, by the way. Going back to the van, is that Aqua Van or whatever it's called? Is that something that's going to be running throughout the city and town, or is that designed more to address youth in the lower part of the city?
The city and town, the lower part of the town, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you might be interested already, but who takes the dome down in May or whatever, and puts and constructs it back up in October or whatever?
Yeah.
Where do you put it?
Yeah, the storage is figured into the design, and the company that's constructing it for us, Farley, one of the reasons we selected them is because they provided for the first couple of times to take it up and take it down and put it up. not rocket science, it's just labor.
We must have to hire that done, right?
Yeah, well, so we would hire them to come down and do it. But the plan, we think, is we've probably got enough folks around here that we could begin to develop that expertise in-house to do it after watching it be done the first several times. You know, maybe not. And it might be that it's just simpler and less hassle to have them come down and do it for us.
Right, that's, that'd be the goal, of course, but do you know what that costs?
$25,000.
For them just to construct it, take it down and construct it?
Yeah, you wanna put it in bid?
Maybe.
Mike?
Yes, the city right now, you talked about a van. What about the city has a van now, it's parked up on Barlow Street, that's the extended van with all the seats in there, is that something that they could use?
Yeah, if it wasn't already being used for the day camp program and the existing program, I can't even get that van. I try to use that van to, take the council around and show them something. I need 2 months' notice. Kelly's got something to look out.
Okay.
It was busy today at Hardak, bringing kids back and forth.
This van, is it anticipated to have a handicap access, like a wheelchair lift and whatever, or do you know?
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that level of planning yet. That gets you into a whole other cost category. It means, and it likely means a CDL driver. So we have to do that analysis and that programming to see whether it's money well spent. Don, I'm going over here, and then I'll get back to it. Yeah.
I'm just sorry, was that 25,000 just to take it down and then 25 again to put it back up? Was it 50,000 a year to do that?
I remember it as total. I thought it was 12 and 12.
Yeah.
And they seem to think, and again, I'm not sure, but that they come down, they show you once or show you twice, and then you get, they send a crew leader down, and you get your muscle, and they supervise it, so you're doing it right, is what.
I mean, probably what we've been thinking is that we would likely use some of our volunteer firefighters or other folks that we can get to come out for special events. Get the training on that. As far as model, they build them and they service them and helping you put it up and take it down as part of their service. But their model was really to teach you to be able to do it on your own, not to use it as a revenue stream.
City and town resident firefighters both, so they both know how to do it.
Do you have another?
Oh, no, I just wondered if the bus was going to be open to adults as well as
Sure.
seniors. So it sounds like maybe those decisions all haven't been made yet, and whether maybe eventually it could be extended to something like the library or the rec department, that maybe will usually recreational opportunities in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the, if you have a second van, there's an awful lot of year-round opportunities for it. We haven't yet gotten to the point of doing that detailed analysis and, I think in the first year, we lean towards going low and going slow, and we'll try to rent a van for the first, 8 weeks and see. But we'll see how those conversations with the dealers go and see what the smart money is.
One other informational piece, Kelly, I think maybe, and it doesn't show in that picture, and I know it's probably assumed, but that dome also connects to the pool house so that nobody's running through the snow to get to the pool from the pool house, no air.
I'm glad for that question, and not only that, but it's, there'll be a permanent structure that'll come out here with a canopy during the summer months that will then have, some windows in it in the wintertime for that transition, and the floor is heated. So it needs a transition. Incidentally, this is the snack bar as well during the summer months. And we envision in the winter, there's a lot of space back here that we envision being filled with tables and chairs so that if folks want to come for a birthday party or watch their kids swim, Charlie Moore asked where he could get a hot dog at the last meeting. That's the spot. So.
Last question for me, shade amenities.
Hold on, Ryan, I'm gonna make note of that.
I'm getting myself into a corner.
I was gonna say, motion to approve.
Shade amenities, will there be awnings or umbrellas anywhere, picnic tables, trees planted strategically? What are we looking at for that?
Probably more awnings associated with the deck furniture. We're evaluating whether we can move the existing shade structure up there or not.
Okay.
But shade's important, I agree.
Thank you.
So we expect to see you up there, a lot of speedos ready to swim.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Any last chance, any other questions? Council, you got any comments to share?
No?
No, there's some really good questions. I'm glad we had this meeting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate everyone coming in to have those, to clarify a number of things.
That's our van to get to the pool.
I would just take the opportunity to say the last word, and that is, I think one thing that's lost in this is the fact that a lot of people want the city and town to work together, and here's a prime example of how we could work together. We work together in offering services, fire, police, recreation, but as a community, few and far between the opportunities to share capital investment. And I think this is a prime opportunity to do that. I would also say that, you know, one of the comments we hear is, well, I'm never going to use that pool, why should I pay for it? Well, I think that's the wrong attitude. I think, you know, I'm born and raised here in this community, and we would have been lost if our forefathers had the same attitude. You look at Collins Pearly, the money they donated for that, Hardack, Holton Park, Taylor Park, the list goes on of what's been donated to this community and in the town as well for to make life better for future generations. And I think this is a prime example of where we can attract families and improve our community for future generations. I think, you know, I tell people all the time, drive through upstate New York and see some of the communities that are just dying on the vine. Mm-hmm. We are not positioning ourselves to be one of those communities. We're being proactive, and we want to, you know, someone brought up housing values. If we die on the vine, your housing value is going to drop. If we keep progressing like we are, housing values will increase, we'll attract more families, and we will be better off as a community. So I think that's one thing we can't forget about. We may not use it, but we need to look at it from a community perspective. So I would just leave you with that. Moving on to item E, the Fonda redevelopment TIF bonds.
The charter amendment, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, charter amendment for local law.
We kind of blended this with the previous discussion on the pool, but the minutes reflect that we are now opening the hearing on the proposed charter amendment. Article 5 reads, shall the St. Albans City Charter be amended to provide as follows. Section 27D will be amended to say the City Council should be authorized to levy a 1% tax on sales, meals, and alcoholic beverages and drinks. The City Council has adopted a policy on how that 1% will be used, as referenced earlier. But in part, it reads 7.5% of annual local option revenues shall be utilized to reduce the cost and increase access to recreation programming to the disadvantaged of citizens. At least 5% of annual local option revenue shall be saved and used to create a rainy day fund or undesignated fund balance. And at least 5% of annual local option revenue shall be directed to replenish the redevelopment fund. Procedurally, with voter approval in March, it would then go on to the state legislature for them to pass and enact into the St. Albans City Charter. Any questions?
Can't slip in forcing power lines underground this time either.
No.
Wait a minute, Ryan, I had you as no more questions. Any
thought we had a
any
law.
other questions? Sorry, Ryan, you're welcome to ask questions.
Do we have a charter amendment that former city council members weren't allowed in the public meetings?
Are there any questions on that? Do you need anything from us, Don?
No.
Can I just share it before, if anyone else would, we do have posters if anyone would like for the, get out to vote. And I would remind people that on Monday, a week from tonight, the town is doing a presentation. Are you going to that, Kelly?
Yes.
So the town is doing another presentation relative to the pool at their select board meeting, so. Don, if you're all set on D, we will move to E.
Thank you. Lastly, the final item on the warning and final item for this section of the agenda concerns the Fonda redevelopment TIF bonds. This article reads, shall the city of St. Albans issue general obligation bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $1 million for the purpose of financing tax increment financing, district environmental remediation, roadway construction, utility improvements, site work, professional services and related costs for the former Fonda container site on Lower Newton, the estimated cost of such improvements being $1 million, and for the payment of pledged credit to the city, in particular the revenues generated from the tax increment finance district. As with all TIF bonds, the city is required to notify voters that the above total includes up to $200,000 in related costs, that the total amount of outstanding tax increment financing district debt is $20 million, of which $2 million is related costs, and if the increment received by the city from any property tax source received by the city is insufficient to pay debt service on the indebtedness identified in any year for whatever reason, including a decrease in property value or repeal of a state property tax source, unless determined otherwise, at the time of such repeal, the city shall remain liable for such debt service for the term of such indebtedness. If the city manager thing doesn't work out, I'm going to do pharmaceutical commercials. Finally, there's a handout here for folks which will enter into the minutes, and I'll summarize. The city of St. Albans purchased the 4.5-acre Fonda site in 2007 for purposes of redevelopment. In 2019, the city entered into a public-private partnership with Connor Contracting and the Genesee and Wyoming Railroad to relocate G&W offices to the 10,000 square foot parcel in a custom building that Connor would build. The city's role is to remove all environmental contaminants from the parcel, construct the access road, and bring all utilities to the site. Tax increment financing allows the city to pay for the above activities by issuing bonds and service the bonds using the tax revenue generated by the private projects. The city has been approved using 100% of municipal tax revenues and 75% of education fund revenue to service the debt. The state of Vermont has approved the city's plan. We anticipate issuing bonds with the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank for a 20-year term with an interest rate of 3.5% per year. The annual debt service is estimated to be $70,361, which will be covered by the income generated at the Fonda redevelopment and other projects in the district. We plan to use existing lines of credit for 3 to 5 years of interim financing for an estimated total of between $211,000 and $251,000. I believe that concludes the required notifications. Let the minutes reflect that the warning itself includes the necessary notifications to the voters related to related costs, total amount of outstanding debt, and principal and interest. I think that's it. Any questions? Yeah.
I do have a question. Given the site proposal and the small street that ended parking along it, has it been like, is it pretty bad that there will ever be a double street extension that passes on through that way? Or is the possibility still there for that to build off of?
The possibility is still there, right? It remains within the NEPA document.
So what document?
The National Environmental Protection Act document, so the federal permit on the project, it remains within there. You know, it's $12 million just for the current phase of it, and since the earmarks have gone away, that's a tough nut to crack. So right now, we're focusing on the portion that's within the city and improves the transportation corridor within the city, while not precluding additional expansion beyond Lower Newton at a future date. Nothing in this project precludes that future expansion. That would all most likely occur on land that we don't own. It's within the railroad's right of way, not the fundus land.
Well, I know initially, when I was on the council before, in my past life, the grand design was that we would pick up from the interstate access road and go all the way to almost over to the 105 corridor over there, all Federal Street. That's obviously not going to happen anymore.
Well, that grand design, that grand vision still remains. It's mostly a function of federal funding at this point, and we're not making any.
And access of land, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I would just reinforce the fact that without the approval of TIF bonds, that there is a possibility that the 63 jobs from Genesee, Wyoming could end up in another county. So we could potentially lose 63 very well-paying jobs outside the region. I don't think that should be lost on.
I agree.
On the discussion whatsoever.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any questions, council? Was good? Don, you don't need anything from us?
I think we're good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for.
Why don't we do a quick check-in on other business? Tim, you got anything? Michael?
Nothing.
Okay. James?
No, I just like to publicly, again, with the recent snowstorms we had, to thank the Public Works folks for doing an incredible job of keeping our community, our roads, our sidewalks clean, safe, and thank you.
Thank you.
Maria?
I'm all set.
Okay, I think I'm good. Encourage folks to get out and vote. I don't think we have anything else, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.